I'd like to call to order the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education open agenda meeting for November 16th, 2017. Mrs. Saradaki, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Brody? Here. Dr. Clancy?
Here.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Here.
Mrs. Soriani?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Mrs. Cleary? Here. Mrs. Bauer?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Please join us in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the board just met in executive session and discussed personnel issues, HIB, legal issues, suspension and detention reports, and that's it. And a notice of this meeting was published in the Times. Notice was given to the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, and also the Patch. We do have a couple of additions to the agenda, 12 BUS and 13 BUS, and I think that's it? Yes. Okay. So, we're sorry we're running a little behind because it's very exciting to have students. We kept hearing it was hard to have to continue with things that are not as exciting as having students here and being able to recognize the Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association. So, Dr. Hayes, if you would like to make some introductions.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Tonight we have the wonderful opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of the Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association. This year, the Soccer Association is celebrating their 40-year anniversary as an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization that offers the children of both Fanwood and Scotch Plains recreational, developmental, and competitive soccer programs. In this day and age, when volunteerism is a rare commodity, simply because everyone is pulled in many directions with work commitments and various family responsibilities, the leaders of this association step up to the plate. These volunteers carve out time to coach children ages 4 to 17 and instill sportsmanship and mutual respect for each other and the game of soccer. These volunteers can be found every spring and fall weekend preparing, lining and maintaining the fields across our combined communities, and most importantly, sharing their time with the young people in our community. We want to thank you for your work, and we are very pleased to be able to honor you this evening. So at this time, I'd like to call the following people forward. Andrew Bondarowitz, who is the president of the Soccer Association. He's in his first term, and you also run the inter-county program, and you volunteer as a referee assigner. Right? All those good things.
You say so.
Suzanne Wojcik, who is the executive vice president, who's serving her first term. She's been a team manager for many years and has been a member of the travel committee for 4 years. And Gordon Moser, who is the vice president for travel. Mr. Moser has been involved in the Soccer Association since 1978, serving first as vice president and then as president of the league. Currently, Mr. Moser is running the travel program for the past 4 years, and he presently has 5 grandchildren playing in the league. That's wonderful. So we want to thank you all for your years of service and for all the other people that are out tonight to support the Soccer Association. Thank you for your dedication to the children in our community and for sharing your experience and your love of soccer with them. We know how important soccer is to our combined towns. And so with that,
And we have a resolution, and Mrs. Brody is going to read it.
Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education Resolution, whereas this year the Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association proudly commemorates their 40th anniversary. This association is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization founded in 1977 that offers the children of Scotch Plains Fanwood area, ages 4 to 17, recreational, developmental, and competitive soccer programs. And whereas the Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association's primary goal is to offer children a safe and enjoyable experience and to give them the opportunity to learn the game of soccer in a warm and friendly environment in which sportsmanship and mutual respect are the norm. And whereas the Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association is proud of their history, which began in 1977 with 450 players and today has grown to 2,400 Scotch Plains Fanwood children enjoying this sport. And whereas every spring and fall weekend, scores of volunteers prepare, line, and maintain fields across our combined communities of Fanwood and Scotch Plains to ensure that the children have safe playing fields in which to score goals. And whereas during the club's 40-year history, over 45,000 players between the ages of 4 and 18 have participated in this program. The club has also provided a place to learn and play for special needs children. And whereas the club takes great pride in its training programs and enjoys the fruits of its labor annually as the Scotch Plains Fanwood High School teams compete deeply in the Boys and Girls County, District, and State Championships. And whereas 40 years is a long time for a volunteer organization to continue to thrive and attract over 10,000 volunteers. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the Scotch Plains Fanwood Soccer Association on their 40th year anniversary and extends best wishes for their continued success for many years to come.
And we have resolutions that board members are going to present to you, so. And maybe if you come here to the center, because we have a photographer too.
It's all about the pictures.
So turn around, bring the kids up, yes, bring the kids up.
Yeah, but don't worry about blocking us, please.
Yeah, stand right here, stand right here.
Yeah, no, that's,
Yeah, stand here, face that way. No, that's okay.
It's about you guys.
You all are the important ones.
It's been confirmed. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Congratulations. Good to see you. Good.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So does anyone have any comments they would like to make?
Second.
Oh, second. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
They're
pass it.
anxious for us to vote, so the resolution was moved, it was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed, so. Does anyone have any comments, or would you like to make some comments?
Sure. On behalf of the entire association, we'd like to really thank the Board of Education too, because without this, your board and all of the people in town, so whether the school maintenance staff, Ryan Miller, who we work very closely with to schedule fields, and we would have no place to play if it was not for the Board of Ed as well. So we really appreciate the partnership, and we try to be as good stewards and partners with you as we can as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I think it's safe to say that Scotch Plains has a big soccer reputation. I know when I first came to Scotch Plains, I had people say to me, "So you're from Scotch Plains? What do you all do, feed soccer balls to those kids down there?" So, ladies, you're carrying on in a long tradition, and we thank you for coming out tonight. It was a lot of fun to see you. We'll look forward to seeing you play in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a school.
No, please, feel free. We're doing the audit report next, so if you don't want to hear the audit report, it's a good time. So with that,
Oh, yes,
yes, you need that.
You deserve it.
thank you.
Have a good night.
Does one of our finance committee members or Mrs. Saradaki want to introduce? Who wants to introduce our auditor this evening? Mrs.
Oh,
Saradaki?
It's up to you.
Okay, why don't you introduce her?
Okay, I'd like to introduce Catherine Mantell from Nisavacia LLP.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you a brief overview of the audit. We just met with the Finance Committee and just making sure that they, as the first charge with the overseeing of the financial operations of the district, that they had a good understanding of the audit. So the audit's about 174 pages long, and so I prepare a 3-page recap of the information that I feel is most important for the board to take a look at. So you have the book, and feel free to look at it, and if you have any questions, please get those questions to Debbie, and we'd be happy to answer any of them. So to be brief, if anybody has a question or wants any elaboration, please just let me know. Did a report of the district's fund balances as of June of 17 compared to the prior year. And overall, the increase was $287,000. And you can see from the report that I prepared where those increases and decreases were. But primarily, the encumbrances were up because there were projects that were being done over the summer. And the capital reserve was lower by $1.9 million because of those projects that were authorized. In generating an increase or a decrease in surplus over the year, just gave you an overview of how that takes place. So you could have additional or shortfall of revenue from what was budgeted, and you had additional revenues over what was budgeted. Also unexpended budget appropriations, but I would like to emphasize that the numbers that I tell you on the paper as far as unexpended, you have to take into consideration those year-end encumbrances. So they have not been taken out of those figures per state statutes for reporting. Again, it is a very long process, and it takes a lot of care and concern to make sure that the district's results come out the way that you intend them to. And so you've been using about $1 million to support each year's budget. And I always say it looks nice on paper. Oh, look at that. We just move along and everything looks good. But everything that goes behind the scenes takes a lot of time and energy and planning. And so at the end of the year, I'll just say that you had $6.6 million in your capital reserve account. And I'd just like to remind the board every year that a few years back, state took capital, or actually, should I say, put it into the 2% cap. So when you're going up by 2%, that includes everything you have to do to your building. So really important to maintain that capital reserve and keep an eye on it and make sure that you're able to do the projects that you need to do. And that has been very evident in the last several audits that is being done. You have some capital projects in Fund 30 that are still being completed, and so I gave you a listing of open projects and how much money was left unexpended on each of those at June 30th. Total of those projects was a little over $800,000. And then in the audit, and a lot of the scuttlebutt over the last 3 years was that we've been required to disclose the pension liability among other liabilities that the district has, such as bonds payable on those capital projects. But the net pension liability in its third year, just wanted to highlight that last year it was $27,000. This year it went up by like 30%, another $9 million to $36 million. And again, the explanation of that, so that you as board members can relay that to anybody who asks you that question, is that that's the liability long-term, way out for everyone associated with Scotch Plains Family School District. Currently, in the pension system, what their pension payments would be over their expected lives based on actuarial information. So it's not something that the district will pay out in 1 to 5 years. It's a very long, expensive liability. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then the last point I have is about the district's food service operations. Very good. We discussed that the revenues were up a lot. They were up $232,000. The subsidies that go with were up $57,000. The operating expenses were only up $171,000. So the district actually had $127,000 increase in food service operations. State has a parameter where you can't exceed 3 months average expenditures, and the district's just slightly over that by a couple $1,000. So we discussed that that really wasn't an audit comment, and that administration is reviewing that and making sure. And so I think that's very good. But I think, the positive results in the food service is very commendable. We do not have any official comments and recommendations. Very well-run district. We did have the management suggestion this year. It's just something that we as a firm thought was an important highlight for the year. And so we had a lot of hurricanes and a lot of students and people in the district wanted to do good, and we shared state regulations on that in terms of what activities could be included in student activities. We discussed that with finance, and I guess the bottom line is that state recommends the board is actually approving those activities. And it's as simple as getting a listing of high school activities and having the board approve it. It's just to be more aware and cognizant of what is transpiring at the school. And then my only other comment is that next year, in addition to the net pension liability, we will be required to report the liability for post-employment with medical benefits. And so we don't know what that number's going to be. And with the pension, just so that you understand too, the Division of Pensions has an audit, and they distribute information that has been prepared by actuaries, audited by their auditors, and then that's information that we get to apply some calculations to and disclose in your report, and do some testing with regard to that. So we'll be in there next year. We don't really know what those numbers will look like.
Are there any questions for Ms. Mantell?
Well, we were in a prior meeting. I would just, for the sake of the public, could you comment on our staff here and the interactions with them and their performance?
Our firm audits 75 school districts, and the staff that work here say that this is by far one of the best places to audit, because your staff is very well prepared. And used to be, we talk about the hardcover books, and some board members would say, oh, we don't need a fancy book. And I would say, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into producing these pages. Put it in a nice cover. Why not? And so I cannot say enough about the cooperation that we receive. Everything is prepared when we get here. That doesn't happen everywhere. And so it is such a delight and such a privilege to be able to work for Scotch Plains School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for coming, for your work, and many kudos to our business administrator and her team, and the oversight she gives. It's wonderful to get that kind of feedback, and we very much appreciate, and we're glad for the taxpayers to know how well run our business operations are. So
Thank you. And I want to say that there is no way we could do it without the team of people we have in the business office.
Mm-hmm. So please give them our thanks.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, So, in accordance with Scotch Plains Fanwood policies 0164 and 0165, we now have an opportunity for anyone from the public.
Going to move the order.
Oh, we have to approve the audit. Okay. Is there anybody who wants to make a motion? Yes.
So moved?
Okay.
I mean, right? Yes.
Yes. So moved as it is in the agenda. Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
No roll call?
No,
Okay. Now we have an opportunity for anyone from the public who would like to come up.
Cindy.
Please state your name, the town in which you reside,
Karen.
and you have 2 minutes.
Deborah.
Seeing no one, we'll go on to committee reports.
Finance?
Okay.
In addition to meeting with the auditor prior to this meeting, the Finance Committee also met on November 6th. And we knew that the audit would be coming, and we talked about some of the recommendations made by the auditors. And also, Mrs. Saradaki went on and talked about our 2018-2019 budget assumptions and guidelines, which I believe everybody has gotten. Everyone has gotten those as well. Mrs. Saradaki also gave us an update on the Kids Recreation Trust Fund grant. Union County awarded a grant to Scotch Plains Fanwood and the Board of Education in the amount of $25,000 to go towards the renovation of Terrell Field. This is quite a bit less than the $250,000 we were hoping for, or the $150,000 that was the least amount we thought we were hoping for. So the committee asked for more information at this point, and we're going to continue talking about it. And Mrs. Saradaki and several of us will be at the shared services meeting this month on the 30th, where we will be talking about that project. And she also reviewed with us a number of possible summer 2018 projects, including roof and masonry repairs, windows, air conditioning at the high school, which will mean that the whole high school is air conditioned, right? If we go forward. If we go forward with that, it could mean the whole. And also looking into whether we need to replace some of our rubber gym floors. And our next meeting will be 12/11/2017. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. I don't think there were any other committees. Oh, you were one? Okay.
The curriculum committee met on November 6th, and we reviewed with John Veninger. He provided us with the computer science update. Dr. Mast and Mr. Darren Watsky updated us on technology update. So with the computer science update, Mr. Veninger discussed the educational, technology, and engineering aspects of computer science. He reviewed the present offerings by the grade bands for our committee. Presently, grades K through 5 have Computer Science Week of Instruction, December 4th through 10th this year. The program began about 3 or 4 years ago. Parents come in and assist, and websites that are provided can be accessed at home. Grades 6 through 8, through the Math Explorations program, use studiocode.org, which engages students with coding for gaming using drop and drag techniques, and to introduce the concepts to get them thinking about how programming languages work. Grades 9 through 10 have access to Intro to Computer Programming using Python. And additionally, at the high school, there are AP computer science courses, the first one in Java, and another course in computer science principles where students interested, is this running actually, Dr. Master, or is this projected to run? This one I believe is running. Thank you. The computer science principles class where students interested in problem solving can learn to work collaboratively and creatively to learn the principles applied in computer science without actually being interested in learning the coding language. Mr. Veninger also reports good news is that the diversity in the courses show good female representation, which is a concern in that area, so we're happy about that. In an attempt to move toward developing stronger computer coding skills, Mr. Veninger will be looking to integrate robotics into the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math explorations class, as well as possibly introducing 3D printing at that level. Tech Ed at the middle schools will also be updated to reflect the goals of student development in the areas of coding, which is a really wonderful, positive direction to go in. We know that our students are well capable of it, and it's an interest, and it's a suggested thing to do to prepare students for their futures. So we see those as very positive steps. Under the technology update, Mr. Watsky discussed the need to update the language for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, otherwise known as FERPA, which is a federal privacy law that gives parents certain protections with regard to their children's educational records, such as report cards, transcripts, disciplinary records, contact and family information, and class schedules. Mr. Watsky educated the committee about the reasons necessitating the update to the language, which would cover current acceptable use. We need to modernize the language to make sure that it's actually doing what it's intended to do and allows us to, with technology specifically, make use of it, but actually still be in compliance with what we need to do. Dr. Mast and Mr. Watsky will continue to examine the necessary changes to ensure that the updated wording reflects the district's expectations and that new procedures will be developed that are specific to subgroups such as band students when they need to communicate with specific subgroups of students at different times, make sure that they're in compliance with the intent of FERPA. As technology is used in expanding areas for media and educational instruction, the language and the procedures must be adapted to reflect the current usage. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add that was in that meeting, but hopefully I covered that.
Any comments or questions?
You covered it all.
Thank you.
Sounded like an interesting meeting.
It was actually fascinating. Yeah,
My phone died, I couldn't follow it.
And I would just, like to thank Mr. Veninger, Dr. Mast, and Mr. Watsky, especially in that meeting, touched on a lot of how technology is developing and the consequences of that happening in the district. So it was interesting to see from an educational perspective what we provide to our students, but also how we appropriately address the use of technology within the district. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Dr. Kulikowski.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. I attended the MAC meeting this past Wednesday morning, and some of the things that we discussed were the fact that cigarettes are now only to be sold to those aged 21 and older. That was effective November 1st. So it was previously 19 years of age could purchase smoking products. That includes electronic vaping systems. And then we discussed some upcoming items that are going to be done at the high school. One is going to be Mikey Fallon coming on, November 21st, the auditorium, 9 o'clock. December 12th, Raiders Don't Risk It. It's a mock car accident, which will be on Happel Court between 7:15 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. And it's going to go on several times so that each class period can come over and experience that in small groups. January 25th, Stay Gold, a program about human trafficking. That's going to be at the high school auditorium, and the time is to be announced. And in March, Project Pride at the high school auditorium, 9 o'clock, and then at 9:48, 9:53 to 10:37. And those are programs that Liz Nodell Gordon is arranging. Then the other one, the last one, is I'll be there with you, and it's a special program. It's the second annual Candlelight Vigil about bringing addiction out of the shadows and into the light. It's going to be held in Trenton. It is December 6th at 5 o'clock. I did forward the respective emails with those topics to both Nancy and Dr. Hayes so that they could be shared or posted.
Can you send that email? Could you email those?
I can email it to you as well, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my report.
Can you?
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'll wait till next.
No, go ahead. You have a question?
I went to that Robert's Rules talk, so- down at school
Comments and
board.
questions, go ahead.
Mikey Fallon, how do I know? What, remind me again. I've heard him.
You don't know me till you know me. He has spoken several times at various schools, various presentations, personal interactions of people. You don't know what somebody else is feeling or thinking. To be kind, someone might not be acting correctly at school, maybe they have a bad home life, or something happened this morning before they came to school, and it's that kind of a program. It is open to anybody if they want to come. It's in the auditorium at the high school that day, 9 o'clock.
We'll
And,
forward the flyer. and
I just remember hearing the name.
He's been to the
He's been to
district,
the
he's been at
district.
Terrell, he's been at Park, he's been at the high school before. The students usually get a presentation, and then I know with PTA Council, we've had him come and speak to the parents in the evening, but I don't know if that's been arranged. I just know it's happening for the students at the high school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Karen, the mock car accident, what day is that?
I have to get back to that email. It's December 12th.
Thank you. And is
December
that,
12th.
is that where they have the fire department and police department?
Everybody's coming as if somebody who was texting, distracted
they have-
driving.
they have
They're
actual
hitting a
people,
tree, and then, the
actors in there.
appropriate response team will be coming in. The parent would be coming in, because they'll get notified that their student was in this accident, so that everybody can see who's involved and what happens when you take a few minutes to look at your phone instead of keeping your eyes on the road.
Very powerful.
Yes. Yeah, and they said that more people had the interest in being of distracted driving rather than drinking and driving. It seems like that type of accident is going down, and it's more so being distracted while you're driving.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and we have another committee report.
Okay. The Facilities Committee met on November 6th. Mr. Murray isn't here as the chairperson, so I'll read the report. Some of these agenda items were already discussed under the Finance Committee, so I won't go into detail, but the Facilities Committee also discussed the Union County Kids Recreation Trust Fund grant and how we did not receive as much money toward the Terrell Fields as we had anticipated. So just as was presented a few minutes earlier, the Shared Services Committee is going to be further discussing how to proceed with this project. The Facilities Committee did discuss summer projects for summer of 2018, repairing portions of the roofs at Terrell and Park Middle Schools, McGinn and Coles, masonry work around the park roof, as was already mentioned by Finance, completing air conditioning in the high school, and we also discussed upgrades to the high school burglar alarm. And proposals for these projects will be obtained from Potter Architects. We also discussed, as people know, there has been some interest in field lighting at the high school. So the Facilities Committee discussed how we can thoughtfully proceed with that project. We discussed that we're going to move forward with conducting some sort of assessments on the feasibility of the project and look into perhaps, other districts who have done this, and further assess the need for field lighting. And we're also going to discuss that with Potter Architects as well. So that will continue to be an agenda item. And that's it.
Are there questions? Comments? Okay, we have two letters to the board. One was received on November 2nd from Patricia Leonard regarding on the Pledge of Allegiance, and that was referred to executive session, and one on November 6th from Sania and Anand Desai asking about a tracking app for school buses, which I know our business administrator is investigating.
Yes, I'm looking into the costs of something like this and how we would handle it with most of our buses being outside contractors.
Okay,
So,
thank you. And that brings us to the superintendent's report, Dr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Tonight, I would ask that the board approve the following students for out-of-district placements for the 17-18 school year. We have case number 05-18, a student who would be placed at Westlake School.
So moved.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. At our next meeting, I will ask that the board affirm the decisions that were made in the 3 HIP cases that were presented in October to the board at the executive sessions on October 12th and October 19th. At tonight's meeting, I would ask that the board approve the following field trips. We have high school students in 12th grade. Approximately 5 of them are going to travel to the New Jersey Department of Consumer Affairs in Newark. The department has not given a specific date yet, but when they go, it will be for the Consumer Affairs Bowl, which is a statewide competition in a game show format that tests students' knowledge of consumer issues and business. And we are also requesting that approximately 10 high school students, along with faculty and administrators, have the opportunity to visit Montgomery Township High School in Skillman, New Jersey. The high school is exploring the concept of block scheduling, and Montgomery Township Public Schools at their high school are using block scheduling, so we'd like to have the opportunity to see a site visit and see how it's working in real life. So those 2 I would ask that the board approve this evening.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. At our next meeting, I will be asking that the board approve the memorandum of agreement with law enforcement officials. This is an agreement that is done annually between the Board of Ed and our local law enforcement, and it's approved by the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety and the New Jersey Department of Education. There are no changes to the memorandum for this year, so they're asking us to move forward with the renewal of that agreement. And finally, I would ask that the board approve the personnel agenda as reviewed in exec this evening.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
That's okay.
that's it, right. Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Brody?
Yes.
Dr. Clancy?
Yes.
Mrs. Soriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleary?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Thank you, and that concludes my report.
All right, Mrs. Saradaki, that brings us to the business functions.
Yes, there are 4 items I would like the board to vote on this evening.
Okay.
One BUS, the approval of staff training based on the superintendent's recommendations for staff training reimbursements on the report dated November 16, 2017. 5 BUS, special education settlement agreement for the payment of $85,000 for the next school year to Waypoint Academy. And the 2 additions to the agenda, special education settlements, 12 BUS is for FH who will remain in district for the balance of 2017, and then the parents will work with the district in determining a placement for 2018 ESY and 2018-19 school year. 13 BUS, which is another special education settlement for a student attending flex school, and we will be reimbursing the parents for the 2017-18, 18-19, and 19-20 school years, as long as the student remains at the school at a rate of $36,000 per year. after we receive information required from the school. So those are the items I would like the board to take action on this evening.
So moved. We have a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the other items, I will be asking for the board to take action on at the November 30th meeting. I will be acknowledging receipt of the disbursement listings, that's 2 BUS for various bank accounts. 3 BUS is the receipt of the security and fire drill reports for the month of October 2017. 4 BUS will be additional related services through private vendors. Right now, we just have one for home instruction through Educational Services Commission of New Jersey for $10,000. 6 BUS, facilities agreement with Behavior Therapy Associates. They have been using Coles Elementary School for a few years now, and they have requested that they use it again next summer. They have been excellent tenants in the building, and we would like to continue that relationship. 7 BUS is maintenance and support agreement for the district printers. We have found that we have a much better cost if we go to a 3-year agreement from a 1-year agreement. There's no price increase over last year. Actually, it will be a decrease because of the 3-year agreement. And after speaking with various people in the district, people are very pleased with the service we've been receiving from them. So, 8 BUS are the change orders for the roofing project that we had this past summer at both the high school and Brunner. It's replacement of bad decking, low flashing, replacement of roof hatches, brick restoration credit of $31,000 because they had repaired everything and there was a balance of $31,000 worth of work that did not need to be done. Additional scupper boxes and new conduits. 9 BUS is the board's approval regarding the budget assumptions and guidelines for 2018-19. This was discussed with the Finance Committee and for review and input. 10 BUS, the business reports for the month of October 2016. And 11 BUS will be the bill list for the period October 24th through November 22nd. And that's everything.
Okay, are there comments or questions for Mrs. Saradaki about any of these?
No?
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Saradaki. So that brings us to board policies. Ms. Williams, are you going to report on those for us?
Sure.
And make the motion here? Well, we're going to do it next week. But
I'd like to have the board consider that we approve the first reading on November 30th for adoption of the following board policies. Bylaw 0000.02, introduction. Policy and Regulation 1240, evaluation of superintendent, M revised. Policy 2415.06, unsafe school choice option, M revised. Policy and Regulation 2464, gifted and talented students, M revised. Policy 2622, student assessment, M revised. Policy and Regulation 3126, district mentoring program, revised. Policy and Regulation 3240, professional development for teachers and school leaders, M revised. Policy 5610, suspension, M revised. Regulation 5610, suspension procedures, M revised. And Policy 5620, expulsion, M revised.
okay, and do you all want to comment at all about
The changes?
the changes?
So most of the changes are not substantive. The the revision to the policy on the bylaw is to include additional definitions per the state regs. Every time a definition is changed or a new term has to be added, they don't revise all the policies, but they put that in the bylaws so that it applies to all of the attached policies and regulations. The change for, so that's the major change for the introduction. The change on the evaluation of the superintendent is to bring it into line with the administrative code through Achieve NJ. And this was simply rewritten so that it provides opportunities both for the board and the superintendent to add information to that process. And it will be aligned with the revised approach that school boards is recommending moving forward for superintendent's evaluation. The unsafe school options changes bring the policy in line with the recent revisions under the Every Student Succeeds Act. The revisions, for the most part, are not significant. It does deal with unsafe school choice options. Fortunately, we don't have any schools that are characterized as unsafe schools, but it does also speak to individual students if they have experienced a significant experience at school that is negative for them, how they could invoke this policy to have a change in placement from one school within the district to another. The changes on the policy for gifted and talented students and the regs are primarily changing the word pupil to student and keeping it in current with current state codes. We're recommending the readoption of the regs. The regs are specific to our district because there are no standardized regs across the district, but the policy, it follows Strauss-Esme and the code very closely. On student assessment, this is to bring us in line with the current revisions that have come for the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, as well as the Park end-of-year assessments. These regulations have changed as the state has included successive grade levels in the requirement to pass certain Park exams as the graduation requirement. I do expect that there may be another change in this policy this spring because the state is changing the science assessment that is mandated from the 4th grade to the 5th grade. Currently, this policy reflects that that science assessment is still in the 4th grade, but if we keep this in line with what we have, then as that new one comes out, there'll be a minor change to that one. And for the district mentoring program, this reflects revised code that clarifies the length of time a new non-tenured teacher needs to be employed during their first year in order to receive mentoring support. And although these are not mandated policies, they are strongly recommended, and we do recommend the adoption of these policies. And finally, well, not quite finally, professional development for teachers, for teachers and school leaders. The revised code requires that a teacher's or a school leader's professional development plan be developed by October 31st, unless the teacher is hired after October 1st. The code also eliminates the provision that the PDP is effective for 1 year, which means that the PDP can be considered a living document that has no specific start and end date, and can continue to be supported over time if the principal and the teacher think it's appropriate.
Which is just for the public, because I wanted the...
PDP is professional development plan. All of our teachers and all of our school leaders are required to have professional development plans. And then on suspension and suspension procedures, the new law, and NJSA 18A 37-2A, places limits on out-of-school suspensions and expulsions in school districts. Specifically, students who are young students who are in preschool through grade 2 who are experiencing behavioral or disciplinary problems should not be suspended. We should find other ways to work through those difficulties for those students. We've rarely had those problems in our district, so we'll be in fine shape there. And the other changes is changing the core curriculum content standards to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Those are language changes. And finally, on expulsion, this parallels the suspension changes because if you can't suspend kids in pre-K through grade 2, you sure can't expel them. So that's policy for this month.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there any new board business? Other board business? Requests to attend workshops? Workshop reports. I know a lot of people went to a lot of workshops the end of last month at school board workshop. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on any of those, but the ones I attended were very, very helpful, very interesting, and I learned a lot. And I went to a Garden State meeting last night up in Ridgewood, and so basically it was a sort of post-election update. Was talking about the incoming governor who has appointed an education advisory team already, and the chair of the advisory team is going to be Mark Biedron, who was the head of the state Board of Education. So I think that's probably a really positive thing, because he was very good at listening. Some other people, Marie Bliston, who was, I think, with NJEA at some time, the board president from Patterson. I didn't get all the names. A representative from Mercer Community College, maybe the president. So, and he wants them to give him their what his priorities should be for the first 100 days. So, Garden State would like to know anything that we would like to feed to them to suggest to these advisory board members to be part of the 100 days. They were talking about, of course, there's a new speaker in the assembly now, and they don't know who the education chair might be, but they were saying it could be Mila Jacey, who lives nearby and is very education-oriented. Then they talked about, too, that, Garden State has a list of critical issues, which are on their webpage. And remember, you don't have to have a password anymore. You can just go. But just to read them out, funding, and moving back to the full funding formula. And there was a lot of discussion at the school board workshop about that at the Garden State meeting there. Special education and teacher training because of this EdTPA requirement for teachers to be certified, teacher evaluations, charter schools, unfunded mandates, and graduation requirements. The incoming governor had said that he's going to obliterate PARC. And so we don't know what that means, but I did say, when they keep talking about test, whatever test it is, for the graduation requirement, because ESSA requires a test, the federal government, could they make the 95% because one of the pushes that Garden State's pushing is to have these multiple assessments for graduation. I said, you need to push at the same time to have the 95% be for if they take any of those assessments, not just whatever kind of test comes down. In addition to obliterating PARC, he had said he was going to put a pause on charter schools to have them look into that. is a lot of disagreement about how that's actually taking place. And they're really pushing for it. Garden State's not against charter schools, but what they're really pushing for is that it be in the public interest and it not disadvantage the students in districts where the money would be taken away from. So basically, that one of the things with special ed that they're pushing for is related to private insurance. And so anyway, it was a very interesting meeting. And then they did a whole little PD thing on board superintendent relations and reaching consensus. Okay, so back to, anyone else? Comments about workshops? Okay, so next week we have next week at the next meeting, the opportunity to read the resolution related to food service management, sustainable schools, and the approval of the minutes. And that brings us back to one more opportunity for the public. Seeing no one, that brings us to the good of the order. Mrs. Brody.
On November 4th, I had the pleasure of going to Terrell Middle School to watch the Terrell Middle School players do the play Murder by the Book. There was probably about 50 people there for that. It was, and the kids did a great job. It's not a musical. It's the whole thing dialogue for a whole hour and a half, and the 10 kids on stage, they really didn't miss a beat. They did a really great job. I mean, it was very interesting. I learned a lot, actually. I'm not a big literature person. And in March, they are doing James and the Giant Peach on March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. But it was really great effort, and the kids did the stage crew and everything, so it was very good.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else for the good of the order?
I see we got new artwork.
Yes, it's
Like a mural.
really wonderful. I can't admire this, but the other, it's beautiful all around the room.
So last night I had the opportunity to attend the World Language Honor Society induction. It was a wonderful evening. There were over 50 students, I think, right? Inducted into the Language Honor Societies for Chinese, Mandarin, Italian, Spanish, and French. And Mrs. Cleary, your son was among them, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. I was very proud.
Right. But they did a beautiful job with the ceremony. And the best part is hearing them all recite in unison the oath.
In Chinese and French.
Yes, and with the exception of the speeches that the kids give about the power of learning a second language and why they chose the language they chose, with the exception of that, the whole program is done in the native language. So it's amazing. The target language is the right word. Thank you. I'm looking at a former world language supervisor. She taught me that a long time ago. But it was a beautiful ceremony, and our hats off to all the leaders of the honor societies, as well as to our new world language supervisor, Lisa Howard, for a beautiful evening.
Yeah, if I might say, she did a wonderful job, and it's really impressive to have the students. They were, I think for the most part, the seniors in the program were officers for each language, and they did a fantastic job relaying the impact that their learning their language has had on them and why they chose their language. And it was really an interesting night, so it was really wonderful.
I just wanted to mention the superintendent's coffee on Monday evening.
We did that too.
We had a good turnout, and people brought up many topics, and so I think it was a good conversation. And I thank Dr. Hayes for always doing that. I think that's one of the points they made. We had a number of board members there as well, so thank you to all of you. But I think one of the things the parents appreciate is the openness and the opportunity to have those conversations. So So I think that's it, except maybe for Happy Thanksgiving
Yes.
to everyone, right? Safe holidays, safe travel, and is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
See, Chris?